What is up, guys? Dzeeff here, and Team Samurai has once again asked me to come to his channel and talk about FAs. Now, if you haven't seen this deck before, it's basically a combo-based deck that revolves around increasing the levels of your own monsters, and I've already made a ton of competitive versions that I posted on my channel and also Team Samurai's channel, but today, because I have just very recently posted the super competitive version of FAs on my channel, I wanted to do something different on Sam's channel, and what I came up with is I wanted to make a build that aims to resolve FA winners. Now, this is the new alternate win condition card that FAs got out of Flames of Destruction. So if you haven't read this card before, let's read it together. So if you control an FA monster, this card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card's effects. So that's really cool. We don't often see alternate win conditions with built-in protection effects. And then also, when your FA monster whose level is at least 5 or higher than its original level battles an opponent's monster and inflicts battle damage to them, you can banish one card from your hand, field, or graveyard, and then you can only activate this effect once per turn, so you can't do this 3 times in one turn. And if 3 of your FA field spells with different names are currently banished and were banished by the effect of FA winners, you win the duel. So what are we trying to do? Well, basically the FA strategy often revolves around destroying your own field spells because they all have search effects when they hit the graveyard, and then when they hit the graveyard you can't really do anything with them. But with FA winners on the board, you can just keep banishing those field spells, and then if you banish each of the one copy of all 3 of them, you can then win the game immediately. Now, there are a couple things that are worth noting here. Even though you can't use this effect more than once per turn, it actually doesn't require you to banish all 3 copies with 1 copy of FA winners. So if your opponent manages to get one of these FA winners off the board and you've banished like 2 field spells already, and then you activate a second copy of FA winners, you actually just need to banish 1 more card, not 3 more, and that way you can still win the game. So that's a ruling that's pretty important to know. It just, as long as the cards were banished from FA winners, you're completely fine. So anyway, let's get into the deck profile now that you've kind of seen the main idea of FA winners. So first off, we have 3 copies of FA Hang Unlock and 2 copies of FA Whipcrosser. These are like the only good level 4 FA monsters. I don't really like Sonic Meister too much, but these 2 are pretty good, and Hang Unlock is obviously really good because it's a one-sided macro Cosmos, just like Master Hero Darklaw. We are playing 3 copies of FA Auto Navigator. I'm sure you guys have read this card before, but if you haven't, it's an insanely powerful tuner monster that not only revives itself every single turn, but also helps you modulate your levels so you can summon a whole bunch of different Synchro monsters or Exceed monsters and all that kind of good stuff. And also it searches the field spells when you summon it, and because we have FA winners, we really care about searching the different field spells because we need to get 1 copy of all 3 of them into the graveyard or on the field or in the hand at some point, just so we can actually win the game with that alternate win condition. One of the new cards I'm playing is FA Dark Dragster. This card, oh man, I love this card so much. I know some people don't really like it too much, but I actually think it's phenomenal. On your first turn, you can use it to pop the field spells and search cards like FA Winners or FA Test Run, but going second, you can use it to break your opponent's board, which I think is super helpful. I like this card a lot. You probably won't be battling your opponent's monsters with this card to trigger FA winners because that would require it to be at level 12. That's not impossible, but it certainly is a lot easier with the level 4 monsters than this guy, but he's still pretty good. And it also doesn't help that the Dark Dragster increases or decreases its level to activate its effect, so it's pretty hard to get to that 5 levels more than its original level. We were playing 2 copies of Zodiac Thoroughblade. This card in particular isn't super important. I mean, it's kind of important for when you draw multiples of the Zoo cards, so you can discard 1 to draw into something different. But mainly, we're just trying to activate Zodiac Barrage. That card's incredible. It's one of the, in my opinion, one of the most important cards in the entire deck because it pops your field spells, gets searches, and all that stuff. But in this deck in particular, it's really important to cycle through the field spells so you can banish them for winners. So we kind of have to play the Zodiac engine. And that's it for the monsters. So I'm not playing any of the expensive hand traps, so if you're looking for an FA deck to pick up and you've been watching my other FA profiles and noticed that I'm playing hand traps in all of them and you can't quite afford those, this is probably the best variant to play just so you have a way to just beat your opponent with a crazy win condition. Onto the field spells, we have 3 copies of FA City Grand Prix. This is by far the best field spell, and it's the one that you want to pop last because it's the one you actually want on the field. We also have 2 copies of FA Off-Road Grand Prix, which is the one that I usually play 3 of, but because in this deck you need to play 1 copy of all of them, we are playing 1 copy of FA Circuit Grand Prix instead of the 3rd copy of Off-Road Grand Prix. So this is it for the field spell lineup, and the field spells in FAs are kind of tricky because if you draw all field spells, you can't really play the game, and that's kind of tough. So So we only want to play the 6 here, and then 2 copies of Terraforming to search them out. And that seems to be a good number. In my testing, in my hours upon hours of playing this deck, I think that 8 field spells is the optimal number, and Terraforming can grab whichever field spell you need to actually secure the win using FA winners. Now, there is some chance here that we're going to banish the FA Circuit Grand Prix with our Pot of Desires, but we do have Cypher Lord Omega to put it back, so it's not super, it's not really that big a deal, but it is worth mentioning that with just 1 copy of Circuit Grand Prix, you might banish it sometimes. In general, though, I find that it's easier to actually just search the FA Circuit Grand Prix first and destroy it before you do anything like Pot of Desires, so that you make sure it's out of the deck. Moving on, we have 3 copies of the win condition, and the reason we're playing through this card, like I said earlier at the beginning of the video, this card doesn't need to individually banish all 3 of the field spells. It just needs to, in total, banish 3 field spells, 3 differently named field spells, and so that's important because if your opponent gets rid of this, you can then just activate a 2nd copy or even a 3rd copy if they manage to get rid of 2 of them, and then you can still win the game there. So this card's super important for this deck, obviously, but what are the ways that we can actually get these monsters to those high levels? Well, the field spells themselves give all the monsters 2 levels. Now, some of them give it during the main phase, some of them give it during the battle phase, and some of them do it during both phases, but that's not all, because the FA monsters increase their levels when you activate, or when you resolve, I should say, FA spell or trap effects and their activations. What that means is that if you have a level 4 monster and you activate a field spell, well, it increases 2 levels because of the field spell, and then 1 level because you activate an FA spell card, and then if you activate FA winners, it now increases 1 more level, so already you're 1 level away from triggering the effect of FA winners, because you're 4 levels higher than it started. So after that, you need to use something else, another FA card, to actually increase that level to 1 more, so you can actually get it to those 5 levels more. One of the best ways is FA Test Run. This card is incredible. It's non-targeting destruction and also happens to increase the level of your cards. Usually with this card, because our deck's so battle face, and this thing switches to battle position of cards, you want to use it on your Auto Navigator Tuner monster because that card has 0 attack anyway, so you don't care too much. But this is like a good piece of removal card for breaking apart your opponent's board, and then also it increases the level of your guy by 1. Another card that in this build is super crucial, and this is actually the only reason, in my opinion, that the FA Winners card is even worth looking at, and that is FA Downforce. So this is a card I don't play in the competitive version, but I've thought about because it is pretty useful. So when you activate it from the hand, and it's a quick play spell, you can increase the level of an FA monster you control by 2 until the end of the turn, and then during another main phase, but not the one that you used it the first time, or not the time that I sent to the graveyard, I should say, you can banish it from the graveyard to do the exact same effect. So like I said earlier, oftentimes you can easily get the cards to 4 levels higher, or sometimes 3 levels higher than what they started with, and then Downforce, just 1 single Downforce, does 2/3 of the FA Winners win condition, because on the first activation, that gets you 1 of the FA Winners effects, and then you can banish it on the graveyard to do the second FA Winners effect, and then at that point, you're only 1 attack away from winning the game. So this is the reason that this deck is even playable. You can search it with all your field spells, which you'll be destroying a lot. This card's incredible, and I don't play Marshalling Field in this deck. I know a lot of people like that card, but I just don't think it's that good. I know it's good with level 4 monsters to increase them to level 9, but it restricts your special summons, and also it doesn't work with Dark Dragster, which you really want it to work with. It also doesn't work with Motorhome, another card that is really important for this deck, because those cards are higher than the level 9 usually, so if you just get them to the level 9, keep them there, it's kind of tough to actually do stuff. But FA Downforce is incredibly powerful, and it's the main reason that I wanted to build this deck in the first place. Lastly, we have 1 FA Pit Stop. This card's good. I cut it in my competitive version just to this 1 copy as well, but in this version, it's not very powerful, just because we want to increase our monsters' levels, not actually decrease them. But it's still a pretty good card, and it's a monster reborn in the graveyard. We lastly have 3 copies of Zodiac Barrage for like the main combo starters, as well as the FA cards. This card's incredible. It pops the field spells, it searches all the cards. Really, really good. I think you guys already know that. For more of like staple-ish cards, we have Pot of Desires, just 2 copies. You'll probably only ever resolve 1. Like I said, there's not too much you care about banishing besides that 1 copy of Circuit Grand Prix, but you can put that back with Siphon Lord Omega and then banish it with FA winners, so it works out just fine. Lastly, for the Saki one-ofs, we have Foolish Burial, which can send Auto Navigator to the grave, Soul Charge, which can do crazy combos, and Monster Reborn, which also does those crazy combos. Now, I mentioned it in other videos, not only on Team Sam's channel, but also my own channel, that there are several 2 and 3 card combos to do like this crazy Skull Dread play. In general, those plays aren't super important to this version of the deck, but they are still worth mentioning, and the reason that I'm talking about that right now is that you usually only do that Skull Dread play when you have Soul Charge or Monster Reborn, so these cards are really important for that, but they're just good cards in general, and especially when paired with Synchro Summoning, because it puts the cards in the grave immediately. Now, the last card that I'm playing is 2 copies of FA Dead Heat. Now, this card is more of a meme, but it actually ends up being pretty useful in this deck for surprise wins with FA winners, mainly because not so much the direct attack effect where you get to special summon a guy, but when an FA monster battles an opponent's monster before damage calc, you can have both player roll a 6-sided die. If your result is higher, increase the level of one of the battling monster or by the FA monster by 4. So because you're activating the trap card effect or the trap card on the initial activation, that increases the FA level by 1, and then this, if you win the die roll, increases it by 4, and 1 plus 4 is 5, quick maths. That lets you actually activate the FA winner effect immediately. So if you can do that downforce thing for 2 activations of FA winners, your opponent might not be expecting this card because no one really plays this card or has read this card, and then you can just flip this up and then maybe have a chance to win the game, not even on your own turn, which I think is pretty hilarious. So I like this card a lot in this version. Probably not unnecessary addition, but it definitely does cheese out some wins, which is a lot of fun. Anyway, that is the main deck, 40 cards. Let's move on to the extra deck. We have 2 copies of FA Dawn Dragster, an incredible tool for negating your opponent's cards. Maybe not super important to our own win condition because it decreases its own level, just like Dark Dragster, but it is important for protecting your other cards to make sure that you can resolve those FA winner activations. And then also we have 1 copy of FA Motorhome Transport. I mentioned this earlier, but this card's really important just because it can increase its level to a lot, and it has a huge amount of attack points, which means you can almost always ensure that you're actually going to do damage with this card, which is how you trigger FA winners. 2 copies of Siphon Lord Omega. This card's absolutely necessary, and you have to at least play 1 copy just so that you can shuffle back or put back cards that you banish off of Desires, because that's really important for this version of the deck. But this card is just good in general because you can recycle both FA Test Run and FA Pit Stop to keep getting special summon effects during your own turn, which is pretty crazy. And then 1 copy of Ancient Fairy Dragon. This card is used for the Skull Dread combo, but it's also just a fantastic card in general. There's lots of field spells going around right now, like Dragonic Diagram and Trickstar Light Stage, so not only are you destroying your opponent's field spells, and that screws them up, but you're also destroying your own field spells, searching field spells, and searching cards with the field spells that you destroy. So this card is crazy. That's it for the Synchros. For the Exceed monsters, we have Totem Bird. This card is for when you just open the Auto Navigators and nothing else, and you can normal summon an Auto Navigator, pass, and then if it lives, you can summon another Auto Navigator, make Totem Bird. You can also summon this thing if you have like multiple copies of Auto Navigator and another field spell. You can just increase the levels to 3 and then overlay for Totem Bird. Pretty good. And then number 41 Baguska is when you just have level 4 monsters, so just like Zudak Barrage, Hang on Mock, and like no field spells, you need to make something to stall out. And then we have the number 42 Galaxy Tomahawk. This is used for the Skull Dread combo, which I guess I should put all the Link monsters that use that as well. So for the Skull Dread combo, we play Cliffort Genius, and then the Great Fly, Link Spider, and then the Skull Dread itself. So you make the Galaxy Tomahawk that puts itself and 5 tokens on board. You make Cliffort Genius, you make Great Fly, and then you make Link Spider. So you have these 3 cards as well as 1 token left over, so 4 differently named monsters, and then you can summon Skull Dread and draw 4 cards and do crazy stuff. That combo isn't super necessary, but it definitely is an incredible combo, especially when you have Soul Charge or Monster Reborn. I also play 1 Borload because the Skull Dread combo isn't super great going second, and then lastly 1 Underclock Taker because we need like some generic Link 2 monster for when we do the Skull Dread combo, because that takes all the other Link monsters out of our deck. Anyway, though, that is going to wrap up this deck profile. FA Winners is a pretty funny card, and I think there's a lot of fun ways to actually trigger its effect, and I think it's a pretty cool way to play FAs on a budget. Now, the FA main deck is always pretty cheap, except for the hand traps, but the extra deck in this one is a little pricey, but like I said, you don't have to play the Skull Dread, you don't have to play the Borreload Dragon. You can just play an FA winners deck without hand traps, and you can probably steal a few games on your opponents, which will be pretty funny, because I think most people at this point kind of know that the combo version of the deck exists, but this version in particular is pretty hilarious when you actually can pull it off. Anyway though, please check out my channel if you like this video. I will see you guys later, and make sure to subscribe to Sam as well. Thank you so much to Team Samurai for letting me come on his channel and share a deck that I'm so interested in once again. I will see you guys later. Bye.
I feel like Usain in the cheetah print. Talk fresh game, I don't need a minute. R.I.P. the game, I need a minute. Okay, let's proceed with it. I'm in the house, got the deed with it. These bozos always sneak this and they taking shots. I'm a king with it. Like no, this league business.